So to finish up chapters, one of the things, or two of the things rather, that the author of your textbook likes to do is he likes to talk about webs of connection, about commonalities that sort of kind of are going to keep together this entire chapter or run thematically through the chapter, and also future chapters as well. The other thing that he also likes to do is a preview of coming attractions, things that we are going to see in the coming chapters that again will kind of draw or connect several different chapters together, kind of like thematic themes that keeps them. So looking at some things here, and again, we're going to add a couple notes, make sure that you highlight what I highlight. And you're going to see this not only obviously in this chapter, but also in future chapters, and in future chapters even more, where we have large-scale political systems brought together culturally different people. Large-scale political systems did this prior to 15th century, and they will continue to do this even after the 15th century. Another element here that you are going to see not only in this chapter but also in future chapters is that religion both united and divided far-flung people. It's going to give them a point of unity with their neighbors, but you'll also see in a later chapter, especially once we get into Europe during the Protestant Reformation, it's also going to divide people. And again, a couple other examples are the common religious culture of Christendom, but it's divided into Roman Catholicism in the West and Eastern Orthodoxy in the East. Buddhism is going to link a bunch of people together in China, Korea, Tibet, Japan, and parts of Southeast Asia. Islam is going to be particularly good at bringing people together. In fact, so much so, you want to put a star here by number 3. And again, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but, the 5 pillars, the activities within the 5 pillars, like the Hajj, is going to be a uniting force. The ability for Muslims who have to read the Quran in order to seek salvation, and the Quran being written in Arabic, is also going to be a big uniter. Another thing that's going to tie people together, and again, as we go on, this is going to become more and more of a thing, is patterns of trade. These are clearly evident within the 15th century. And in fact, you want to put down here next to see over here that some of these patterns of trade are clear even in the 13th century. Some of these patterns of trade are clear even in the 13th century. In a lot of cases, some of these trade patterns are just building upon trade patterns that already existed. Now, with the preview of coming attractions, we have a couple things that we need to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we have here highlighting and stars, not necessarily notes. So the first thing here is that no 15th century connections were truly global. In fact, you want to go ahead and put a big old star by that. Because even though it looks as though they're going to different parts of the globe, keep in mind that Afro-Eurasia is not having any contact with the Americas. The Americas aren't having any contact with anyone else. In fact, even those empires that we talked about tend to be very self-isolated, mainly because of the geography that they have that, again, we talked about before and we'll definitely deal with a little bit later. The only time these connections truly become global is going to be with the European expansion in the 16th century. And again, you want to go ahead and put a star right there by number 1 as well. Because it's going to be here in the 16th century, once the Western Europeans go off and explore, that this global age truly becomes global. And then from that point on, it's making those connections bigger into other areas of the globe and then linking them together in new ways as well as eventually faster ways. This concept of modern human society that emerges first in Europe in the 19th century and then throughout the world This is going to kind of be a big deal, especially as we go further on. So you want to go ahead and put yet another star there by capital B. Core feature, of course, is going to be industrialization. Once industrialization comes, you're going to see that the Europeans really go and just boom onto the scene. It's also going to be accompanied by a massive population increase. And in fact, you want to put down here next to number 2. Let me give you an idea of the population increase. You want to put down here from 1750 to 1914, the population of Europe more than triples. From 1750 to 1914, the population of Europe more than triples. And this is going to be for a couple reasons, and I'll just give you a basic idea here because we'll definitely talk about it in a later chapter. It's not that people are having more babies. It's that the babies that are being born are living, or more often than not, living a natural life cycle. During 1750 to 1914, we don't have any great big huge massive major wars. There's a reason for the end date in 1914 because that's going to be the beginning of World War I, and that is a major population destroyer. We're improving health, healthcare, and also general cleanliness during this time period. So we see less levels of epidemic level diseases. We're also improving farming. So we're able to support more more people because we have more food. And because we have more food, it's also going to limit some of those diseases here as well. And as we have more food, as we have more people, of course, like I've said before, people are going to have more problems. And in order to deal with those more problems, the state is going to become more powerful and more intrusive. Because again, it has to figure out how to deal with those issues here as well. The modern revolution is going to be just as important as the agricultural revolution. It's going to be just as transformative as well. So you want to go ahead and here next to number 7, put a star by that as well. The prominence of the European states in the global stage is going to grow over the last 500 years. And for a while, at least until 1750-ish, when they begin to industrialize, one of the things that I'll comment on is that as a civilization, Europe is behind. These guys are going to be playing catch up for quite some time, especially to the Islamic empires and especially to whatever's going on in China. However, after 1500, Western Europe become the most innovative, prosperous, powerful, and imitated part of the world. But it's going to take us some time. With this, we're going to see the spread of European languages and Christian religions throughout the world. These guys are going to initiate the scientific revolution and the industrial revolution. I mean, these are going to be ways in which the Western Europeans are going to catch up and also eventually surpass these other empires, these other civilizations that we've talked about. They also are going to be the origin of the modern isms like liberalism, nationalism, feminism, socialism. All these intellectual movements are going to come out of the Western European century here as well. One of the last things that your author, your textbook, tends to do here at the end of these chapters is a reflections. And with this one, it's kind of like a little bit of a what if. He likes to do some figurative thinking here. And the big one that, again, he's going to kind of come back to off and on over the rest of the chapters in this book is that might have history been shaped, at least at certain points, by coincidence, chance, or decisions by a few. And because this is something that we'll reference back to, you want to put your last star here next to capital A. And then, he just, proposes some supposals. What if, like, for example, the Ottomans had taken Vienna rather than just simply lay siege and lost? What would have happened if they would have continued to expand into Western Europe? And periodically he'll do these and we'll kind of have like some discussions about the validity of those what ifs, or even what those what ifs could have possibly brought.